Okay, find me a sexy picture of Paddy Pimblett.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Heavy Hands. I'm Connor. That's Phil. Yo, Phil.
Stop.
Not much. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
Looking forward to one more break, and then essentially we're in the run-up to one of the longest gaps I can remember in what we would describe as the modern UFC, which we've got coming up, which we were just talking about before we started the call.
No kidding. It still feels a ways away at the moment. But yeah, we've got this upcoming card, the next pay-per-view on December 6th, another good-looking fight night card on December 13th, and then we're done for the year.
Yeah, and then some.
Oh my God. I didn't even realize how long the gap was until the first event of 2025.
Yeah, it's the longest gap I can remember since, before 2010, sometime, maybe not even then.
Yeah. So how about this right at the top of the show? Let's tell people in the comments, or if you want to get at us on social media, Twitter would probably be easiest, where you can find me at Boxing Bush and Phil at Evil Greg Jackson. Let us know what topics you might like us to cover. It seems like we'll have an opportunity to maybe do some deep dives on historical fighters. Is something that might be fun and interesting, little career retrospective, style development, track the stylistic development of certain great fighters of the past, etc. Let us know, because we're going to be talking about it. We're also, of course, it really emphasizes that we're in the final stretch before the handies, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I got to do another fucking song.
You certainly do.
So that's something to look forward to for everyone but me. But we're still in the middle of this just sudden glut of good, well-booked cards here towards the end of 2025. The last one was a fight night, main evented by Arman Tsarukyan and Dan Hooker, with a co-main event that could easily have been a fight night main event on its own. Ian Garry versus Bilal Muhammad. And there were plenty of other interesting results and meaningful fights sprinkled throughout the rest of this card. I think the ones we're going to focus on later in the show are probably Miktabek Orolbai detonating Jack Hermansson in his first, and I would argue, ill-advised welterweight performance. And Kyoji Horiguchi returned to the UFC. And I really thought they were giving him a senselessly difficult matchup, but it did not look difficult for Kyoji. He made a huge statement and surely has put himself immediately in the title conversation. Why he was not immediately in the title conversation anyway, given that Kai Asakura is still a mystery.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, that is odd.
He has beaten
I guess it's
Kai
that
Asakura.
they're just being they've got to ritually punish him for leaving in the first place.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. It seems UFC's...
from a division that at the time they were clearly gutting.
Yeah. But how dare he not have faith in their sort of fumbling non-plans?
He should have stayed even whilst they were continuing to cut flyweights all around him, and then later on they realized that they just needed content whatever happened, so they just started signing some people again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to blame him for having a very good career elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, we will talk about that surely in the course of breaking down his triumphant return to the UFC later in the show. To kick things off, I think we have to start with our main event. Arman Tsarukyan, Dan Hooker. And I think we made the right call on this one.
Mm-hmm.
This felt like a dangerous matchup, I believe we said, for Arman Tsarukyan, but stylistically a fight where you just had to pick him to win, and also probably an equally dangerous matchup for Dan Hooker. I'm particularly glad that we mentioned the likelihood of Tsarukyan just going out there and blasting Hooker with strikes.
Yeah.
He kind of did that as well as ultimately outgrappling and submitting him.
Yeah, there were many times in that first round where I was like, yeah, a little bit, a little bit of a better angle on these strikes, and yes, Dan Hooker would be going down. He was getting hit very cleanly in the face.
Yep.
With like full power shots.
Yeah, took some nasty body kicks as well. Also some nasty leg kicks from Tsarukyan. And you could see, even while this was happening, I mean, you can see some of the problems I believe we discussed with Tsarukyan striking. His sort of lack of feel, the sort of roteness, because even in moments where he's putting a ton of pressure on Hooker and landing clean, he is also like squaring up in front of him and just getting jabbed directly in the face. He does not have the necessary feel to be an effective defensive fighter on the feet. Or maybe he doesn't have the effective defensive skill to have a good feel for fighting on the feet. One way or the other, there were plenty of moments, even when he was like barnstorming Hooker, where he was just fully open to Hooker's straight shots. But the aggression, the explosiveness, and the very worrying threat of the takedown was enough to make it happen.
And also his own absurd scrambling ability.
Oh my God.
We mentioned that Dan Hooker has a troubling game for a wrestler, even if it's not built around the core tenet, which is that you just need to have like ironclad takedown defense. He's never had that. But yeah, he does have a nasty front choke and guillotine, and there are a couple of times where Tsarukyan seemed to almost learn that lesson, apart from, in that second, but most notably there was that second round where it looked like he was in quite deep, and then he simply spun his way out of it.
In Hooker's guard.
Yeah.
So like it was a scramble where he literally gave his back to what could have been a full back mount, but he was simply too fast. Hooker didn't realize what was happening until he was suddenly on his back with a guy in his guard, who was then immediately crushing him with brutal ground and pound.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this was a good fight, I think, for the division. It was a sad one for if you like Dan Hooker, but not, an unpredictable one. Everyone knew that in order to win this fight, he would have to navigate some extremely scary spots.
Yeah.
And he was not able to do so. But it's also, another one of those times where you can see Arman as being still that little step behind Islam Makhachev, that he's able to broadly replicate things that Islam Makhachev has done, but it's always just that little bit scrappier, that little bit uglier, that little bit harder.
Yeah. I think maybe he doesn't have the cleverness in his takedown game that Makhachev does. Maybe it's simply that his setups are a little more obvious. So he has to actually, like when Islam shoots, he's rarely being threatened by anything. It is all the opponent having to deal with his wrestling. Tsarukyan, yeah, Hooker clearly saw two of the big shot takedowns in this fight coming, at least enough to create a threat. On the other hand, I do think that one of the things kind of balancing Arman out, putting him a little closer to the Islam side of their the spectrum that they're both on, is his athleticism.
Yeah, just like a wild, explosive physical potential.
Islam is not a bad athlete, but he does not have that raw explosiveness. And that's why, like, I don't think Tsarukyan was surprised by those two guillotine attempts. In fact, I think he felt them being applied and was like, oh, the takedown's there now. And chose to fall into it, just completely confident in his ability to do whatever was necessary to escape and then be on the ground where he wanted to be anyway.
Yep.
The first one, he had to like invert to like a north-south position and scramble out and then ended up on top. You know, it's usually against a comparable athletic opponent. That's usually a bailout move, which causes you to lose any position you might have had. Not for Tsarukyan in this matchup. Likewise, the second one was even crazier. You know, it made me think of what I was watching, what I was seeing from Bilal over the last 2 weeks. Because, of course, I watched his fight with Jack Della Maddalena in preparation for Makhachev Della Maddalena. And I watched plenty of other fights in preparation for his fight with Ian Garry. And I mentioned several times this feeling in certain scramble positions that if Bilal were a better, more natural athlete, if he had not only the physicality, but like the instincts and the feel, like the ground is one area where Tsarukyan really does have a feel. He knows when it's go time and makes the right move. Even if it is not a technical move, he understands the like dynamics of each position on the ground. And I kept noticing how Bilal was just like a step too slow to actually win these scrambles. You know, like in the first fight with Edwards, for example, or the second fight with Edwards, for example. And Dan Hooker was occupying that role between himself and Tsarukyan, where he was getting opportunities that, yeah, maybe somebody like Makhachev, even lacking Tsarukyan's athleticism, but if anything, being his superior in technical grappling, would have been able to seize those openings. But Dan Hooker was just a half second too slow, and it made all the difference.
Yeah.
And like I said, Tsarukyan's ground and pound, really good. I want to talk about it because Michael Bisping was absolutely elated watching this. Did you catch that?
No. I don't think I remember that.
You know, Michael is like, he's happy to be sort of judgmental of the tendencies of other fighters from his position, which I kind of appreciate. And especially I appreciate that Bisping will always call out when a fight sucks. You know, I don't like everything he says, but he will call out when a fight sucks, and he will call out the fighters for putting on a shitty fight. Like you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, somebody's got to go for it. And the moment Tsarukyan started blasting Hooker with elbows and hammer fists in round 2, he was like, see, this is what we need to see more of. All these fights where these guys just hold on to position, they suck. They should be doing this. Because he was, like, he made it look very simple. It's really just a lot of rinse and repeat. Like, I kind of agree with him. You know, like, obviously, against other opponents, you'd be wary of losing position, posturing up too much, whatever. But the beauty of ground and pound, even from a position like, say, guard, is that you are simply in a superior position. It's like having your opponent cornered. You know, like, it's like having your opponent in a position on the feet where it's time to unload. Even if you maybe you still do it methodically, you don't want to get reckless, but it's attacking time. Like that is the way Tsarukyan understood being in Dan Hooker's guard. This guy's in his back. I have him right where I want him. And so we get, Hooker desperately trying to break his posture, and Tsarukyan would just swim an arm in, can opener him a little bit, create a post or a frame of some kind, and then crush him with an elbow, end up back with his head in his chest, and just go through the whole process again. Like, what's to stop you from simply repeatedly, methodically regaining posture and landing another big shot?
Mm-hmm.
It's very rinse and repeat. And I think that speaks to that it's just a very good principled aspect of Tsarukyan's ground game. If he's going to be getting all of his opponents into this position, all of them except potentially Islam Makhachev, then just slowly fire away. And he was absolutely destroying Hooker with not a huge volume, at least at first, of ground strikes, but just a relentless motivation to continue smushing Hooker's head back down to the canvas, getting posture, and landing at least one good strike before starting all over again.
Yeah. It is worth noting that people have, it's also, it is good to be able to put out serious offense from that position, but it is also worth noting that it is also a function of skill, right? He's able to beat Dan Hooker up because Dan Hooker does not have the sweep or submission game of some of the people that he's going to be up against.
Absolutely.
For example, Oliveira had a relatively smart approach when he fought Tsarukyan of just trying to lock up his arms as much as possible. Just crush him chest to chest, keep him as tight as possible, sort of a lock. And it was smart because it was, it was broadly the kind of lockdown stuff that people that didn't want to engage in the grappling used to do quite a lot, Anderson Silva or Paul Daly or whatever. It was well attuned for Tsarukyan because Tsarukyan would really try and, do his, explosively pull himself out to throw his elbows. And then, Oliveira would typically use that moment to immediately get butterflies or get his feet on his hips and just kick him off.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. But even so Tsarukyan was going for it in that fight, and I don't know. Just I do appreciate the principle of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a dominant position.
It is the difference between thrashing someone, and having a close fight.
Right.
And you can see why some people might prioritize the more control-oriented approach. But yes, in both cases, Tsarukyan did still win.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It is nice to see after a series of rather top control-heavy fights, it is nice to see someone kicking the shit out of someone on the floor.
Yeah.
Even if I do like Dan Hooker.
Yeah, not nice for the Dan Hooker fans out there, but certainly a dominant performance, which I think we at least 70% expected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't going to be one of those fights where you could tell what was going to happen after a round, but it was a fight where you were just Dan Hooker needs to survive at least 2 rounds.
Right.
And they might be just hellacious shit kickings.
Yep.
And they sort of were.
Yep. Yeah, increasingly, in fact. This was one of those fights where once Tsarukyan started to have any success on the ground, it just got worse and worse for Hooker.
Yeah, I think Hooker, again, defensive, in terms of being a defensive grappler, very much one of those guys where, once you've stopped him moving,
Yeah.
the dynamic is much, much easier. You know, once you get him past his first initial defensive scrambles and, you know, the guillotines and the chokes and so on, like, once his shoulders hit the mat, you're going to have a much easier time.
Mm-hmm. And good for him as a, at this point, feels like perennial title contender, because it was an impressive, dominant finish. I'd be very happy to see Tsarukyan get a shot at Ilia Topuria.
Yeah, they seem to really dislike each other.
Great.
And yeah, I don't know what Topuria's doing, frankly.
Is there beef between Armenians and Georgians, or is it simply personal? Tsarukyan does seem to kind of have beef with every person he fights. He seems like one of those guys.
Yeah, I think he's just got that. He's just got that energy.
Got a chip on his shoulder.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know what Ilya is doing. You know, he doesn't really have a defense lined up.
Yeah, photo shoots, presumably.
Few people. What's that?
Photo shoots, presumably.
Yeah, I would really like it to be Arman. I would just like to see, you know, sort of mentioning this with Tsarukyan, with Makhachev last time.
Yep.
I would just like to see some, like, nice, normal title defenses of people defending their belts against the most deserving challenger for a little bit.
Yeah, give me some sport.
Yep. I don't need to see Pembla. I don't need to see Justin Gaethje get another title shot. Even if he's like, I'm going to retire if I don't get it. He's had enough.
Who are we kidding, though? They'll do. I mean, I'll be happy to see Pembla too on a completely different level.
Yeah, I guess so.
And who are we kidding? That's the fight they're going to try to make. But
God.
Tsarukyan is a more than worthy candidate, and this was a performance which really underscored that, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take our first break there. When we come back, time to talk about Ian Garry, Belal Muhammad. After this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out, the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
Welcome back to Heavy Hands, our co-main event. Ian Machado Garry, Belal Muhammad. We found this one very compelling on paper. It was okay as an actual fight.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. A lot of people seem to think it was pretty bad. I didn't think it was bad by any means. I also didn't think it was, maybe this was just part of the fact that it was compelling matchmaking. I didn't actually feel it was all that decisive. I agree.
I found it very similar to the JDM fight. I was just like,
yeah,
it's, you know, it's relatively close on paper, but one of these guys like visibly doesn't have the power to bust a grape. Like every now and again, Belal would just get hit by something that just looked,
yes,
you know, mechanically. And in terms of the reactions that the two were getting, obviously, you know, he was walking it off kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But you were just like, oh, that's a hard strike. That's harder than most of the ones that he'd landed. And even, you know, when he was landing, you know, the big shots that he could land, you just didn't get the same effect. So I just felt like it was broadly quite similar in that I was like, there might be a round in here for Belal, but you know, I think that there isn't much of a way in which you can score it for him. Like he gets low kicked and taken off his feet in the first round. He gets he eats at least one big punch in every other round that sort of distinguishes what's been going on.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it was very competitive all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I mean. Like, I agree with Garry getting the win. I even mostly agree with like these 2 30-27 scorecards that he received. I think there's a good case for him in every single round. But I certainly didn't feel like he was running away with it on the feet.
No, why would he? He's Ian Garry.
Yeah. Like, I think we saw, and some of this has to do, with the threat of the takedown, I'm sure. Garry adopted quite a different stance for most of this fight. His entire approach was clearly geared around stopping takedowns. It's weird that he's at welterweight, and this is kind of the first of that sort of matchup he has really dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody who presents a constant shot takedown threat. That used to just be the rule at 170, that every other opponent was a powerful wrestle boxer.
Yes, they had to like they tried very carefully to navigate people like Paul Daly up the ranks.
Right. Dan Hardy.
Yes.
Yeah. And only the truly special maniacs like Carlos Condit could like legit beat these guys despite having no takedown defense.
Mm-hmm.
But so, some of it has to do with that, a thing that a problem with which Garry has really had very little, a shocking dearth of experience. But also, I kind of thought there was a lot of exposing of bad defensive tendencies from Garry done in this fight. Again, from an unfamiliar stance and everything, he was very kind of front foot heavy, head forward, and maybe that contributed to it, but far too many occasions for my liking on which Garry was coming straight in and going straight back out.
Yep.
Despite the height and reach advantage. Despite, at many times in the fight, demonstrating actually good footwork. When it came to exchanging, he was almost always going straight in and then either leaning or stepping or both straight back out on the same line. And he actually got punished for it quite a bit. A lot of right hands over the top landed for Bilal Muhammad in this fight.
Yep.
Not super hard, but they were connecting frequently.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you're talking someone who has no reach, no power, and not like much of an explosive step in either.
Right.
So,
all he's got is the switch up threat.
Yep.
And some reasonably good hands. Let's not obscure the fact that Bilal's boxing has gotten much, much better in the last few years, and it looks good in this fight.
Yeah.
But still, has no other advantages going for him in what is supposed to be Garry's department.
Yep.
And I don't know. Like, I watched this and it made me think, if they rematched Garry with Carlos Prates right now, would Prates just win?
Yeah, maybe. You do get the impression that, like, Garry is someone who comes in with plans and sticks to them, but yeah, also that, like, maybe, like, once he's figured out, maybe that's just kind of it.
Yeah.
That there isn't going to be, like, he's not going to organically feel his way into a new solution in a fight. Well, I think we've said this kind of stuff before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that I think he's very focused on executing, but yeah, he is somewhat rote, and yeah, there's a good chance that like Prates simply picked up where he left off.
Yeah. Not really an adapter. And I just think a version of Carlos who has now gone through the lesson that Garry gave him and would at the very least, if they were to rematch, probably be willing to just exchange and follow Garry out of the pocket even when he was getting hit, might catch him out devastatingly. Not to mention actually having size and reach parity with Garry.
Yeah.
And much more power might just ruin his shit in any one of the exchanges that Bilal was able to get out of Garry.
Yes, if you put Bilal, remember the name Mohammed, in Carlos Pratis' body, he probably would have brutally knocked Ian Garry out.
That's just, yeah. So, I don't know how much the takedown threat and the stylistic adjustments that necessitated had to do with this. But, yeah. I mean, I've just been thinking about this lately, Phil. Like, I keep talking about, I gotta write something about this. I keep talking about MMA fighters having this bizarre tendency to circle the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
As a rule, many fighters will almost never circle to their left, many orthodox fighters, which is very strange and I would argue sort of unnatural for any kind of fighting on the feet to circle primarily in that direction. And this has led to me thinking about, the inherent problems of defending in MMA and why men who go forward win. And I've always in the past just kind of thought, well, it's because there's a lot of shit that can happen to you in MMA. And so like being on the defense is just inherently bad compared to boxing. But the more I think about it, the more I'm coming down the side of, I think men who go forward win because MMA fighters simply have bad footwork.
Mm-hmm.
And like really the key to winning without pressing forward the entire time is actually being able to neutralize the opponent. However committed they are to attacking, to be able to constantly take yourself off the line of fire and force them to reset. And to be threatening while you do this. And for a fight where Garry, clearly he had it in mind to stay on the outside and keep Bilal at bay, he didn't really make it look very clean and controlled.
No.
A lot of times where he's standing directly in front of Bilal, he'll do a little kind of jabbing and pivoting, but then just accept an exchange and whip his head straight back when he sees the right hand coming. And I think that's a equally important reason why the guy who goes forward just tends to win, or at least get a surprisingly difficult fight out of his opponent, as was the case here, because Ian Garry certainly doesn't have the worst footwork among MMA fighters. And even so, there was a lot of bad footwork from him in this fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Conversely, really good takedown defense.
Absolutely. As you said last week, his wrestling and grappling have consistently been some of the most impressive parts of his game. He was ironclad.
Yeah, which makes him, again, it makes him such a weird fighter. Because, obviously if you look at the way he presents himself, it's as, a lethal striker that no one wants to tangle with on the feet and so on, that's, gonna destroy his way up the welterweight division.
Mm-hmm.
But you actually watch his fights and you're just like, his actual, his superpower is being, one of the, most broad brush neutralizers we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to think of someone who's, unless you go back to really old, style archetypes like Machida or whatever, where their game is just it functions because they can draw the venom out of every part of the opponent's game to at least some extent.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not like a Machida or a Stephen Thompson style on the feet where he's looking to land one clean, devastating shot, and he has, in the case of Stephen Thompson, or to some extent Machida, genuinely good footwork. Mm-hmm. It's and both of those guys had fairly devastating power. It's that he's going to like just about win on the feet. He's going to just about win, and he's just going to be incredibly difficult to take down, which means that you just get this this run of him just edging people out, of just looking a little bit better than Bilal Muhammad, a little bit better than Michael Venom Page.
Quite a bit better than Carlos Prates until the point where he was not better at him than all. So on balance, a little bit better than like Carlos Prates.
An amazing performance until right at the end when you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. He's lucky to be alive. Yeah. So on balance, sort of in the same tier, I would argue. Yeah. To be clear, this definitely looked like a better version of Garry than the one who fought Shavkat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was pleased to see that. He was much more active.
He was fighting a tiny man with no power.
Yeah, but just in terms of him actually, trying to stay lined up, keep his weapons targeted on the opponent, trying to find counters, like, it was a much more principled striking affair in that respect. It wasn't pure neutralization, but he wasn't really purely able to neutralize Bilal either. That I think is the part that gives me so much pause. Like, I just don't think, given that he showed he could sort of effortlessly defend all the takedowns, even ones that were really well set up, to the point where they just got nowhere. He completely shut the takedowns down. It still felt shockingly competitive on the feet, where he was kind of just edging Bilal out, mostly by landing like the one best strike of each round.
Yep. I'm not even sure if that happened in the third round, because he
definitely in the third round landed a really big right hand.
But Bilal also absolutely clocked him like right as the bell went.
Yeah, he did. But it was still, there was a sound to the right hand he landed on Bilal, and it actually shook Bilal up a little bit. That is the one thing, is that Garry didn't show a single effect. He didn't even show any like facial marking from all the shots Bilal was landing on him.
Yeah, that's again, that is the other weird thing about him, right? Is that he seems to be one of these guys who just like made of Teflon.
Yeah, just shocking for an Irishman.
Yeah.
Some of the worst skin in the world on average.
Yeah.
Sunburn, wrinkly,
Yep.
Sort of crusted with brine, but somehow Garry is very difficult to mark.
But yeah, also just like extremely, like clearly extremely durable.
Yeah.
He's now gone, it was 5 rounds with Prates, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
5 with Prates and Rakhmonov.
Mm-hmm.
Most been all right.
He did get buzzed by Prates. He did get knocked down back in the day by Song Kinan, but recovers amazingly and clearly can take a good shot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was the footwork, man. I just couldn't get it. I just can't get it out of my mind that, like, what am I missing? Or is it simply like that this shit just isn't being taught? Like, how much more difficult is it to do it in practice, or is it just not being learned? Why is Ian Garry having to kind of bail out of the standoff so often, square up and like take wide circles to the side? Like, where's the pivots, man?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the efficient footwork? Where's the evasive move that actually brings you closer to the opponent with your weapons lined up and ready to go while they're still adjusting? Like, he's not really, didn't really create any moments like that in a fight where it would have very much been possible. You're not talking about somebody who's fast on the feet. You're not talking about somebody who has great defense, and you're talking about somebody with a big size disadvantage. You should be able to turn them and smack them as they adjust. You should be able to make them adjust. And he wasn't really able to do that at all.
Yep. Had a very good call out afterwards, though.
Who did he call out? I think I might have skipped the interview.
Oh, Islam.
Oh.
He just gave a very articulate, impassioned thing where he was like, "This is my future. I'm the best fighter in this division. Everyone thinks they can wrestle me." It was actually like very well done. He's rattled it off with not an or an ah, and made his case very, very well. It's just a shame that like the actual fights never make you think that ever.
Yeah. Man, this guy talks like he just destroyed Bilal Muhammad, but in fact he got quite a competitive decision over him.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, like if he went up against Islam, I mean, and he was saying, you have to defend the belt, you have to fight against actual welterweights. Again, fully agree with it.
Oh yeah.
If he went up against Islam, I'd just be like, again, it's another one of these weird things where you're like, what does just having a game that stuff sort of bounces off of, but also that isn't fully functional, going to do against Islam Makhachev? Like, on the one hand, if his takedown defense doesn't hold up, as we can see, there is rather a difference between Bilal Muhammad and we mentioned that like Islam isn't perhaps as athletic as Arman Tsarukyan, but you can now very clearly see that there is also a difference between guys like Islam and guys like Bilal.
He's not only considerably more physically gifted than Bilal, but also just a technical genius. Yeah,
but we're also talking someone who's like crippled JDM with like 2 low kicks.
Yeah.
Like Bilal is simply never doing that against any of these people that he's fighting ever.
Right.
No matter how vascular he might start looking. But yeah, so there is a chance that like Garry's sort of neutralizing, let's win a sort of 60-40 fight kind of approach might just utterly collapse against Islam because those moments of defense where he was getting hit would be from someone who can actually hurt him.
Right.
And the like fence tie-ups would be from someone who's actually like has a really coherent, dangerous clinch and takedown game.
Yeah. Someone who has a much meaner initial shot than Bilal and about 4 times the skill in following up to actually finish the takedown.
Yeah.
No disrespect to our boy Bilal. It's just the reality. Islam is an incredible takedown artist.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we've seen the difference. I mean, we've also seen that, maybe the JDM fight wouldn't actually have been that different because it very clearly is quite possible to simply neutralize Bilal's takedowns completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Garry, it's basically either Garry or Shavkat, and it just depends who's healthy and who lines up with Islam coming back.
Yeah, I'd kind of be, at this point, I kind of feel like I'd be okay with Garry simply because it's been so long since Shavkat has fought.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's been on the shelf so long, it kind of feels like he needs a tune-up before you throw him into a title shot.
Yeah.
Like, literally, how long ago was that?
Win over Garry.
Yeah, December 2024. I guess that's not like completely outside of Garry's just been quite active since then, but why?
Shavkat's just been he's been injured.
Yeah, he had that infection, I think, when he was supposed to fight Bilal. And that was actually before the Garry fight. And then he was injured, so he was then unable to compete against then champion Bilal. Stated he would be offered a title shot later in the year after recovering, so he's just been laid up. I mean, that's like, Garry's here, he's ready.
Yeah.
So maybe just do that. Shavkat isn't doing well.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I'd like to see Islam get back in there Get back in there soon. I do not, obviously, as no one does, I do not want to see Islam against Kamaru Usman.
No.
I just don't care. I don't want to see
There's
it.
an interest
I would love to see it
there
at some point.
But I would rather have seen like Usman really close to his title reign versus
exactly.
Islam. Not a very old one. Even though he might still make it very competitive, it would also probably it has a likelihood of being a tedious matchup.
Yeah, I mean, every time they do this kind of thing, where they're like, you know, they make an obviously, or not every time, but almost all of the time, they make an obviously mismatched fight because they're like, oh, they've got some kind of history between them, or this is a legacy fight. And it just ends up being shit. And they're like, you know, there's other people there's other obvious choices to make in the division, but then, you know, the promoters and the UFC realize they can make a little bit more cash off like a faded name or whatever. And
but is Usman even is that a draw?
Yeah. I mean, Cheeto O'Malley, Dillashaw, Sterling, Stipe Jones, just cut it out. Just cut it the fuck out. Like, no one wants this. Like, it's always just miserable.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Give me
Again,
some sport.
I reiterate my plea. Just some normal title defenses with the people who deserve to be the challengers.
Yeah, just a little bit of sport.
From the new era.
I'm not an idiot. I don't think this is entirely an actual sport, but it is a little bit of a sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a little structured competition.
Yep.
Anyway, that's all for the co-main event. We will see. Ian Garry, whatever else you can say about him, and there's plenty, he is an interesting factor in the welterweight division.
He sure is.
In many ways, more
puzzle wrapped in an enigma.
Yeah, in many ways, more interesting to think about than to watch a lot of the time. But the whole like, is this person also going to have one of these Ian Garry fights? That does make him kind of compelling.
Yep.
All right. Let's take a break then. When we come back, we will pick up some pieces from the lower half of this card. Of course, first and foremost, the UFC return of former UFC flyweight contender, former Rizin champion, Kyoji Horiguchi.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. Okay, there are one or two of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. You can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Heavy Hands. Let's talk about Kyoji. Kyoji Horiguchi has, let me just put a number on it out of curiosity. How long has it been since this man was in the UFC? He's now 35, so definitely the ideal time to bring him into the flyweight title picture. He has not fought in the UFC since November of 2016.
So not quite a decade.
That is insane. It was insane they let him go in the first place. It's insane he's been really very good during that entire interim. Albeit his loss to Patchy Mix, despite being up a weight class, has not aged super well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just wild. It's been nearly a decade since we last saw this man in the UFC. And he just came in here and I think I mentioned this at the top of the show. I picked Ulanbekov, in part because of a sadness hedge, but I looked at this matchup and thought, like, why are we doing this? Like, everybody who cares about flyweight to begin with knows who Kyoji Horiguchi is.
Yeah.
You gave Kai Asakura a title shot immediately. Kyoji and Kai Asakura have each beaten each other, but the most recent result, Kyoji beat him. And here you are giving him what looked like a very high risk, minimal reward kind of booking.
Yeah, notably one which mirrored that last fight, which I believe he had on his way out the door last time. Again,
Ali Bagatinov, I believe it was.
Yeah. I mean, again, the flyweight division is a particularly horrendous place to be in the UFC, because not only do they sort of not care about it a lot of the time, but they will get super mad at you.
Yeah.
If you also imply that it's not the greatest place to be in the world and that you might like to ply your trade elsewhere. So yeah, after he'd gotten, largely out-wrestled by Demetrius Johnson, and he was going on to Ryzen, etc., they gave him the unheralded and, largely unheralded, but also, extremely tough Ali Bagatinov. And it turns out that Kyoji learns things really quickly, and Kyoji just largely out-wrestled him.
Yep. But yeah, it's not exclusive to flyweights. I do feel the UFC really has a penchant for punitive matchmaking.
Oh yeah, 100%. They wouldn't be matching him like this if he hadn't left.
Yeah. Which, to be clear, he left the UFC at a time when they were actively dismantling the flyweight division. A decision which Kyoji could not have known that, less than a year later, they would suddenly turn around upon realizing that they needed all the content they could possibly get their hands on, and also that they had a legacy matchup material on their hands in the form of Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. But the fact that it's not really surprising, which is sad, that they could sort of appear to resent Kyoji Horiguchi for simply seeing the writing on the wall and making a good career decision. And it's hard for me not to imagine a little bit of that resentment carrying over into a matchup like this, which makes it far more so even than it was when he fought and beat Bagatinov. Makes it very gratifying to see him go out there and just demolish Tajiro Ulanbekov. A fight that started out quite competitive, and then the moment Kyoji got a little headway, started badly hurting Ulanbekov with low kicks. Then he, right after that almost, started finding the range on his right hand, was landing it as a counter, and then transitions to his takedowns. It just became like a
rout.
Exactly. A rout, a comprehensive victory.
Yeah, you could see it in the body language of Ulanbekov. After the first round, he's like, he's dapping Kyoji up. He's like, yeah, that was a good round, that round. After the second round, he is looking, he's got the JDM expression on his face.
Yep. Yeah, and even in the moments in the second round, in the third round, between exchanges, the physical and mental fatigue, which Ulanbekov cannot disguise, as he's falling back into the fence, sort of stumbling back into the pocket, it was just completely, he could feel that he was out of options.
Yeah. I think with this kind of performance, I think Ulanbekov was ranked 11th. But yeah, Kyoji is now ranked 8th.
Why are we giving him a number 11 guy in the division? He's like one of the only stars at 125.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is the amount of people who are above him who could feasibly get a title shot is very limited, let's be honest.
Right.
Joshua Van, getting a shot imminently. Brandon Moreno. Maybe if Joshua Van wins.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not if Pantoja wins. Brandon Royval. Lost to both of the guys. No. Amir Albazi.
Yeah, not happening.
No, let's be real. Tatsuro Taira.
Interesting.
Again, no.
I don't know. The grappling might be interesting between a guy like Kyoji, guy like Taira and Kyoji.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard not to agree. And this is another issue with the way the UFC rankings work. Like, you beat the number 11 guy, the way that they historically work, getting to number 8 off of that is actually kind of generous.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, like, if you go in there against a guy who's basically number 10, he's right on the fringe of the real contender rankings, and you beat him like this, number 5, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You should just be like, as if he wasn't already just clearly in the mix. The rankings should reflect that that is a win that puts you immediately in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, at least. And, I mean, what are we doing? Tatsuro Taira he's a fun fighter, but let's be real. Like, his wins are off Alex Perez's knee exploding.
Yep. And
then he got, it was a split decision against Brandon Royval, but let's be honest, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's pretty much it. That's his his case for being a top 5 ranked flyweight in the year of our Lord 2025, soon to be 2026. No way. You could put Kyoji straight up to number 4 above Amir Albazi, and no one would blink an eye.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe another way to think of this is with some MMA math. Like, how would Amir Albazi versus Tagir Ulanbekov look, or Tatsuro Taira versus Tagir Ulanbekov? Would they be this dominant?
No.
Would they build to this kind of brutal crescendo? Probably not.
Yeah.
So it's a statement-making win. It should definitely put him in the top 5, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just good to have Kyoji back. It was good to see him looking in such great form, and with his increasingly, I mean, he's probably not going to be making any big strides technically, and really hasn't for the last few years, but compared to his first UFC run, this is his complete game, you know?
Yeah. It was just nice to see all the, it was just nice to see him playing the hits.
Yeah.
There's the top game, there's the, long fencing jab, the big right hand, the blitzes, the jumping, the sort of jumping in body kicks.
Mm-hmm.
It was all there. Nice to see. It was great to see it working.
Yeah.
Heartening.
Indeed. Couple other bouts from this undercard, just to mention fairly quickly. Jack Hermansson moved down to 170 to fight Miktabik Orolbai, who moved up to 170, having missed the lightweight limit several times. I talked about this with Zane last week, and I did pick Orolbai because I looked at these two, and the two things were in my mind. Is there a timeline in which Jack Hermansson makes the obviously massive cut to 170, and it does some good for him? Maybe. If so, it would have happened a lot earlier in his career. I don't think it really solves all of his issues, and of course, there's always the ever-present threat of his chin degrading because of the massive cut, which may very well have been a factor here. He did get basically one-shot KO'd. But also, I just looked at Miktabik Orolbai, and I was like, this guy has a classic welterweight style. He's not gigantic in frame, but he is clearly too dense and too big in volume to make 155. He seems like he'll fit right in at 170. It seems like a very comfortable place for him in his game. And that was precisely the dynamic that played out in this fight. Orolbai is not a sophisticated fighter. He is a marauder. And that's exactly how he played this against Jack Hermansson. And Jack, I don't know, a lot of this fight, I'm thinking about footwork again, but also like a lot of this fight was taking place at the range where it's not really just about footwork anymore. Like sometimes you're stuck on the back foot, your opponent is just pot committed to coming after you, and they're just in your fucking grill, and it doesn't matter how good you are at pivoting. They're going to be faster moving forward than you are going backwards or going side to side. They're just the one moving more naturally, and you have to stand your ground and get them the hell out of your face. And Jack just could not do that. He was just constantly having Orolbai in Orolbai's own range, directly in front of him, and was trying to be evasive when the time for that was long past. He needed to, and I'm not sure that Jack Hermansson can stand his ground and exchange with a guy who clearly doesn't give a shit about getting hit in return.
Okay, here's my point watching this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, what is the good reason for a fighter like Jack Hermansson to go down a weight class?
Grappling?
Yeah. What was he doing in this fight?
Yeah, just the Jack Hermansson anti-Chris Curtis game.
Yeah. Like, what was he doing against someone like Orolbai? Like, completely inexplicable. I mean, not inexplicable. I mean, because this is simply, one of the bad ways that competition can catch up to you.
Yeah.
Either because his brain was starved of moisture, or because he's just starting to freak out in there. He could not come up with a logical way of fighting his opponent.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. The guy's in your face.
This
then
is like
grab
this is
him.
definitely something that I can like sympathize with you with, because I've competed in stuff like Tekken, and as I get older, like sometimes you will just have things where you go into a competition and your mind will just go blank, and you will just look like complete shit.
Totally.
And you will be like, what happened there? And you will come out of it and you will not be able to remember what you've been doing. And you will have just kind of sat there being paralyzed the entire fight.
Yeah.
And I can fully sympathize with like a Jack, because it just looked like, again, he just went in there and his brain just defaulted to what he knew as being the safe approach. Just stay on the back foot and then neutralize them. But he just had to like run at Orolbai and tie up with him. That was the actual safe approach, but he clearly just wasn't thinking.
I mean, and even if he had, like, this is the problem. Orolbai's a grappler.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Hermansson it may have turned out he had gained some kind of strength advantage with the weight cut. Maybe it should have certainly tested it, because what you're saying does not disagree with what I was saying, right? Like, if the guy's in your fucking grill and the footwork is not succeeding in evading him, then one version of standing your ground and backing him off is tie him up, get in there, clinch, shoot on the legs, whatever. But even if he had, there remains the possibility that Orolbai would have just been able to compete with him there. Maybe tire Hermansson out. As a guy who's basically cutting less weight than ever before.
If he's not going down to grapple with people, what is he going down for?
I know.
Like, that's mad.
Yeah.
Because the one thing, was that, when he was at middleweight, is that he would lose fights where he just got hulked around by someone.
Right.
And you could just be like, okay, maybe he just wants to be the Hulk now. And then he goes into a fight and he's like back foot man.
Yep. Yeah.
No. Like, it just
doesn't track.
It's just all wrong. Like, it's, again, it's a late career weight cut. It's probably doing terrible things to you mentally as well as physically. Just think of think of Dan Hooker against Arnold Allen. Like
Yeah.
another person who was like huge at lightweight, and then was just like, you know what, I'm going to go back down to featherweight.
Yep.
And just looked horrific and got smoked.
Think of Ross Pearson, Cub Swanson back in the day.
Yeah.
Another be
100%.
huge striker man and then just get fucking destroyed by a little featherweight.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
at least Dan Hooker, you could be like, you are actually a tall striker.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some logic to it. And again, there's some logic to Jack Hermansson. If he can just out hustle people, maybe he can win. But yeah, as a striker,
Yeah.
terrible.
The cruel irony is that, yeah, he probably, what motivated his move from, down to welterweight was getting brutally KO'd in the first round by Gregory Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went down to 155 or to 170 to get brutally KO'd in the first round.
Yep.
So, last one I think we want to talk about was a UFC debutant, Luke Riley. I knew he was likely a Paddy Pimblett teammate even before I saw Paddy in the corner. Just looking away from the screen and hearing the rest of his corner talk to him. A lot of sounds. You know, fucking get after him.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Riley is part of a recent trend, which I think you know me, Phil, I'm loath to be optimistic, but, it looks like it pretends a brighter future for the UFC, at least compared to the absolute schlock trash that we have gotten more and more of over the last 2, 3, 4 years. I'm talking about the Contender Series slop. The Contender Series becoming the UFC's primary method of scouting and acquiring talent. With massive quotation marks. And you know, I think their head was in the right place. Their heart is never in the right place, but I think their head was in the right place at first with the Contender Series. Because it did initially operate like a development league or like a gauntlet where it was better than tough. Yeah, and they were exclusively taking the standout stars. Now that said something about their taste, because they passed by some really good fighters and picked up some ones who simply happened to land a big punch in their Contender Series fight and weren't actually good at all. But setting that aside, it was a good idea, which very quickly became like the UFC puppy mill, where it's just a way to determine who in the world is willing to take $10,000 and no more to fight in the UFC. And they started signing everybody and bringing in guys who had lost on the Contender Series. It was just a way of networking with cheap content. And they used to sign guys like Luke Riley all the time. Those were the guys that the UFC was out there headhunting. And you can look at this fight that Riley had in his UFC debut with Bogdan Grad. And you can say, as you did to me before, Phil, he's not going to be like a massive player in featherweight, in the UFC's featherweight division. I did say he may surprise us because he is a notably tough, scrappy, and violent fighter. He has already proven a penchant for going through really tough fights where he's just kind of losing for long portions and still not losing focus and getting as aggressive as he needs to make the win happen. So he's got some intangible qualities that perhaps make him greater than the sum of his parts. But Luke Riley was like a regional champion type. Came out of Cage Warriors, fought a lot of other good prospects, got a lot of meaningful experience. That's the kind of guy you bring to the UFC. Even if it costs a little more. You bring in a guy who has proven himself out in the world, and now it's time to see if he has what it really takes. And as much as this was like not a perfect debut, it does still speak to like why Riley as an individual is a cool fighter. He was getting absolutely swamped by the hulking Cro-Magnon wrestler Bogdan Grad. And then his corner was like, well, we need to get a little bit lower stance, be ready for the sprawl. Also, let's go fucking get him. And he came out in round 2, and he got his ass. He started hitting the body. His corner was also saying he's going to be tired after all that, so work his body, encourage him to get more tired. He came out, he landed a left hook to the body. He went for it again. Grad tried to counter with a jab, which he slipped inside of to land a right uppercut to the body, following that second left hook. Huh? Slipping inside. Yeah. And then he pursued, threw a 1-2, and Grad tried to exchange hooks with him after the right hand. And Riley's left hook was much tighter, much faster to the target, and an absolutely picturesque knockdown, leading to a savage ground and pound KO. So look, you have a first round where it's like, I don't know if this guy's any good, and then a second round where you're like, holy shit, this guy's scary. That makes him an interesting element in the featherweight division to me.
Yeah. I think, I mean, he's absolutely going to be tons of fun. I mean, I know what I would do if I was him.
What's that?
I would simply call out Steve Garcia after every fight.
Absolutely.
That's his natural foil.
Absolutely.
Like they are made for each other.
Love to see him fight Steve Garcia. Love to see him fight Charles Jourdain. He's just a guy who automatically makes compelling matchups with other fun fighters.
Yep.
So, yeah, I wanted to highlight Luke Riley because he looks fun, and win or lose, we are going to be seeing more fun fights out of him in the future on this stage. But also, he just sort of represents something to me that the effects. You know, the last 5 or 6 months, the UFC has signed a lot of young dudes. In fact, we started noticing it right around the time we ourselves were realizing just how old the UFC rankings had gotten.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's because they were listening to the podcast.
Of course. Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
And they were like, you know what? These guys are right as they always are.
Yeah.
We should change our strategy based on the criticisms they've identified.
Hey, you know, it's the first step is admitting when you're wrong. But they signed a bunch of young dudes, and over the last 3 months or so, I feel I've noticed they are suddenly like feeding their Contender Series slop fighters to like regional champion types. And the effects of that may not be felt for some time, but it is quite possible that by the end of 2026, we return to a higher standard of skill and competition on the average UFC fight night card. I can only hope.
Yep. Yes. Let's hope. It's a small good sign.
Yeah. So that'll just about do it. We have the weekend off, but that doesn't mean that we won't have something to talk about next week when we will be looking forward to UFC 323. Let me just read you some of the names that we're going to be at least trying to talk about here. Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan, 2. Alexandre Pantoja versus Joshua Van. Brandon Moreno, Tatsuro Taira. Henry Cejudo, Peyton Talbot. Macy Barber, Karine Silva. Marvin Vettori's still here for some reason. Okay,
Jalen Turner is back.
I'm running out now. Shit, Muhammad Naimov, Myron Santos is the curtain jerker, and that's a guaranteed fun mess of a fight. You know, I even like Terrence McKinney, Chris Duncan. Like, we know what Terrence McKinney can offer. It's one thing for a minute and a half, and that.
Yep.
Give him Chris Duncan. Let Chris Duncan either die or get a really cool win. Like, there's just a lot of good shit on this card. You mentioned earlier, unfortunately, Jalen Turner is still fighting despite looking like the most dispirited man on earth. He's taking on Edson Barboza, which is either appropriate for a guy who has lost his passion or nightmarish mental torture, where the 45-year-old Edson Barboza has all the youthful passion that you have completely lost as his junior by many years. But pretty much top to bottom, it's either big names or compelling matchups or both. So we'll be talking about that next week. Already looking forward to it. Until then, you should find us on the social media at Boxing Bush. That's me. At Evil Greg Jackson. That's Phil. You can also find me on Blue Sky if I remember to glance at it at King Typo. And like I said at the top of the show, let us know if there are any great fighters of history. Could be MMA, could be kickboxing, could be boxing. It might be fun to do like a deep dive episode during our end of year gap, or any other topics that you think merit, if not an hour, then at least a segment's worth of discussion. Let us know. Either there on Twitter, you can get at me on Blue Sky, or in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, I did have a brief look, and I think that the upcoming gap might actually be literally the longest gap in the UFC schedule since in
Zuffa history, probably.
Yeah, well, I think there's one, which is essentially the giant gap that there was in COVID when everyone went into lockdown.
Yep.
And then other than that, it's basically, you have to go pre-Zuffa. It's like the gap between UFC 4 and 5.
Hey, gearing up for the Paramount switch, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Which, will that have happened by the first event in January? I kind of think it will.
Yeah, I believe that's the plan.
It'll be their first numbered event, which is not a traditionally defined pay-per-view, I believe, as long as that's still the case, where simply by paying for the service, you can watch it. And currently they have one fight booked for it, and that is Nikita Krylov versus Modestas Bukauskas.
That's a great gag. That's truly, truly excellent.
Oh, God. So, we'll see what that turns into. Lord knows we've got time to figure it out. So, that's one positive. Anyway, also check out the Heavy Hands Patreon. Sometime this week, we will have the second episode of Heavy Hanka with Miguel Class, talking about this November sumo tournament, which has been just tons of fun. And you can also find me and Phil's last bonus episode talking about a bunch of undercard stuff, including, I think, Garry Muhammad. You can still maybe get something, find out if our preview aligned with what happened in the fight or not. All of that's on patreon.com/heavyhands. But anyway, that'll do it for today's show. We'll talk to you next week. And until then, if you came here today for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands. Alrighty. Fucking hell. Krylov Bukauskas is the only announced fight.
I think we're gearing up for a new era.